Thank you for being here, Stacey. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
So we'll be showing some of the DIY video transformations that you have on your Instagram account that are amazing. And first, I want to get to your story. I wasn't sure, coming into meeting you, did you have a background in DIY? Had you always thought about renovation? Had you helped your parents with anything like that? Like, where did that background come from for you, or did you have one at all?
So I definitely didn't have a background in DIY or renovation. I, in England, was a teacher, a kindergarten teacher. Um, I definitely always had like a creative side to me, and my father was a builder, so I guess subconsciously I knew this was a thing, but it wasn't something I had ever explored or thought that I would be doing.
You weren't on
Um,
the job site with him ever or anything like that. Yeah.
no, if I was, I would have tried to pick up some skills because they would have come in
Might have paid more
handy.
attention. Yeah. So you were a teacher there. And then, so when you came to the States, tell me about that transition then. So you were a teacher, that was your plan, that was your career. And then you
Mhm.
came to the States to live. And that was quite an unexpected journey for you.
Yeah, I didn't have this. I grew up in a small town. I thought I was going to stay in a small town, to be honest. Wasn't the person who was going to go out and explore the world. But my boyfriend at the time, who is now my husband, had a job offer in Canada. And so we moved to North America to begin this like new adventure. Uh, but we were in our 20s and we were naive and we didn't know like emigrating to a new country entailed fully.
Mhm.
So when we arrived, it turned out that my visa would not allow me to work. Um, and so starting out as an adventure suddenly became me being trapped in this position where I kind of lost my sense of purpose in life. I didn't know what to do with myself. I felt like um, this was his adventure, and I was just kind of on the sidelines living. I didn't have my friends or my family or my culture. Also, Canada, it's very cold.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
There was a lot of new things and not a lot of, it didn't feel like there was a lot of me there.
Mhm. And so when you can't work and you were used to working,
Hmm.
what did you do with your time? What did you, I mean, is that part of that was part of it, is that you really didn't have, you just kind of waited for him to get home every day?
It's that's what it felt like. Oh, that was the reality actually is, you don't have any friends. Everyone you know is on a different time zone back in England. He's at work for 8 hours a day and he's navigating this whole other side of his new career and this new adventure. And he comes home and that's the first time I've opened my mouth in the day,
Yeah.
which quickly became very lonely and isolating. And just that complete lack of purpose. Like my
Mhm.
biggest task of the day would be to go and get bread from the supermarket, and if I couldn't fulfill it, I would feel
Yeah.
terrible.
Yeah. And it's hard too. I mean, I work from home and, I get to talk with lovely people like you when I do my show, or I have clients that I do calls with. But for the most part, I'm by myself most of the day. And then I know how it feels like when you get around people, you want to talk and ask questions and find out about their day and share what parts of your day. And that does, I mean, and I live here where I've lived a long time and have friends and a network and a community that I can plug
Yeah,
into. I can make a plan to be somewhere else for the day if I need that connection, but to not have the option for it at all, I'd imagine, your husband was supportive, but all this, at the same time, it put a lot on him too to try to be both things, the career and
yeah.
supportive of you at home.
It's a hard thing to navigate between the two of you, I think,
Yeah.
because he has to go out and provide and be the sole owner, which was not something that we had planned for. He's navigating this new job. He's
Mhm.
got to go make new connections, but at the same time, I'm like sat at home twiddling my fingers, just waiting.
Yeah. And then you ended up getting quite ill for a while. And that had a big impact on just your everyday life, being able to move your body.
Yeah, I was stricken with a mystery illness of some form. Navigating that as well as an immigrant was quite hard because I didn't have the same access to healthcare that everyone did. So we spent a lot of money trying to fix it, but it was just gradually getting worse. And by the end of it, I did spend a lot of time just in bed, unable to do much of anything. And so I felt like, in my mind at the time, it didn't feel like I really had much. I'd lost my family, I'd lost my job, and then I'd lost my body.
Mhm.
And that felt like I really just had nothing left to my name. I felt like invisible.
Mhm. Let's take a break. When we come back, I want to talk about the transition that happened when you
Hmm.
regained your health and then the renovation that really has changed your entire life and your career
Yes,
for sure. We'll be
yes.
back in just a moment. We're back talking with you, Stacey. At this point in your story, you were quite ill, but were able to make a full recovery, still
Hmm.
unable to work due to your visa, and trying to figure out what could bring more meaning to your life and purpose. And at the time, you didn't have a home yet. You hadn't bought a home.
No.
Um, where did you live?
So we were living in this like a little shoebox apartment in Toronto. It was 400 square foot. When we first moved in, we moved from England, so we came with two suitcases, which was mostly just clothes. Um, not much of anything else. You can't exactly like pack a bed on a plane. So for the first few
Sure.
weeks, we were just sleeping on a pile of clothes in the middle of the floor, like slowly working to just build some sense of normalcy.
Mhm.
Um, once I started recovering, I realized that I was missing a sense of home. And I expressed that I felt like a visitor in my husband's life almost, which was not on him at all. It's just, I didn't really have much of anything for myself or to call my own. And so I had this deep desire to create a sense of home where we were, which was never going to happen in Toronto because it's extremely expensive. So we decided to move to Texas and we were going to pursue getting the green card. And in my head, the green card was the way that I was going to be able to work and I was going to be able to like gain agency over my life again, um, gain a sense of self.
Yeah.
And so,
So that must have been hard waiting on that one thing you thought was going to be kind of the ticket to get on with your life.
yeah, it felt like it, it felt like all I was doing was waiting for my life to begin. And at some point, I decided to focus on creating a sense of home because that's something I could do with or without the permission to work. Um, so we started to saving up for a home, and I knew that I wanted to get something that needed a little love. And I started putting a lot of research into DIY, into the home buying process, into ways to save money. I watched other inspirational women online working on their own homes, and all of a sudden, this daydream and this like desire to create was the entire focus of my life. And when we saved enough, we moved to Pennsylvania, which is where we bought our first home here. And funnily enough, about a week before we bought our home, my green card finally arrived. And it suddenly just didn't hold the same weight anymore. I didn't feel like it was this huge important milestone that was going to allow my life to begin because I'd already created this separate daydream and stopped waiting for permission. And I was already right in the middle of this new dream that had started.
And part of that dream was to renovate the home, and you bought one that needed quite a lot of work.
Yeah.
A lot of work. I mean, just the pool alone is a reason why a lot of people didn't make the purchase.
Yes, so the pool had been broken for 7 years, and we didn't actually get to see it before we moved in. It had a cover on top. We had no idea what was underneath. I'm pretty sure I have like the footage of us lifting it for the first time, and I was like pretty optimistic in that video, but inside I was like, oh my goodness, how am I gonna fix a pool? I have no idea what I'm doing. But I strongly believe if you put your mind to it, you can figure
Yeah.
almost anything out.
Yeah. And one of the things I love about your story too, when I was reading more about you and how you got to this place, is your website is absolutely lovely and so well done. And it's so obvious yes, it's for you and this part of your life that's become a business, which we'll talk about a little later, but it's
Mm-hmm.
also for the person who visits your website and who becomes
Yeah.
part of that community that you've created really worldwide. And you didn't know how to build a website, and yet you put your head down for a couple of months. You had an idea of how you wanted it to look, and you created this beautiful space. And I have such respect for that. Years ago, whenever I would have an idea, I'd have to pay someone to build a website, create a logo, build this brand. And sometimes it would get in the way of the things I might want to achieve in my life. And so I figured that I better learn how to do these things so that when I have an idea, whether it succeeds or fails, I'm the one who can bring that to fruition. And
Yes.
back in the day, the first website ever that I wanted built was back when you had code still. There were not any of these websites that helped you, like web builders and things. And at the time, you had to have no code. And I found a web developer who would build my website for like $500 to get it started. And I don't know what the equivalent dollars of that is now, probably. This was 2003. So a couple thousand at least dollars, maybe a
Yeah.
few. And I kind of thought, well, if I get my pillow on the Friend show, I had a pillow business at the time, then I can justify the expense because I need this broader audience. So I know what it's like to go in and like, okay, how do I build something from scratch? You have an
Mm.
idea of how it looks in your head, and then trying to bring it to fruition on your own. And so you did such a good job. It's
Thank
like
you.
this do-it-yourself website that looks like you hired somebody to do all the work.
It's, I think it's just another aspect of Dawn of a Daydream. It's just this thing that, okay, I have no experience, I have no knowledge to just like rely on, but if you put your mind to something, you really
Yeah.
can pull off quite a lot. And, you know, you did the same thing. Making a website is really hard, a lot
Yeah.
harder than I thought it was going to be, but I did want a place that I had complete agency over, and I built this community, and I have a lot of requests coming in of like, yeah, things they want to see, things that would help them out. And so if somebody comes to me with something, I wanted to be able to create that, not to have to ask somebody else.
Yeah. Even just to upload it. Yeah, I
Yeah,
had a
as
website. At
simple
one
as
point, I
that.
had to pay $50 every time I had someone upload, which was basically like a YouTube link. I can do it in 5 seconds, but I was
Yeah.
charged $50 every time I did it. So I understand the need to be able to really control, for lack of a better term, your own creativity and being able to
Yeah.
share that creativity when and how you want, right? When and how you want. And that's really how you got started with Instagram, because I read that you had an account for about a year that was private, but you were still recording the content and filming these renovations and doing a really good job of it, learning how to edit, learning how to make it visually appealing, aesthetically appealing, but also showing the transition from a pool with black water in it to what it is now. So let's talk about some of those renovations.
Mhm.
You're part of a community that does what is it called? One room challenge.
Woodroom
And
challenge,
it
yeah.
gives you just set a goal of 8 weeks. It doesn't necessarily mean that you have to be done with the whole thing in 8 weeks, but it's what you can accomplish in that 8 weeks. And there's chats and
Mhm.
groups and all of that. So when you signed up for this challenge, one of the first renovations you shared that was most meaningful to you was your entryway.
Yeah.
Show some of that while you talk about that renovation.
Yeah, so my entry was the first big project that I took on in this house. It was my first time using power tools of any kind. It was my first time. I built a closet like from scratch. It was just, you know, a plain box with a rail, and then I did the full thing. It has a bench. It's very pretty. It's even got lighting at the top. And
Mhm.
so I joined the One Room Challenge, had 8 weeks to transform it. And what I took on was quite ambitious. But I feel like I gained a lot of confidence from
Mhm.
the other people on Instagram who I had connected with. So I created a group. It was just a group chat on Instagram. It was female DIYers supporting one another, and there was people with different skills, people with different like followings, people with different experience, and we would all come on there and we would support one another's progress. We would give each other tips. Um, so I feel like it holds a lot of emotional weight to me just because it's where I grew a lot. It's where I challenged myself creatively, but it's also where I kind of found this group
Right.
of friends to kind of connect with, which was something I was missing a lot, having left everybody
Yeah.
behind in England.
So you were building your own community. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so the entryway, amazing transformation. And again, your video, the way you do everything and show it is part of the journey for the person who's watching. And then we talked
Mhm.
about the pool that had black water and you created, transformed that space. And then let's talk about the 1 acre of land. You said you couldn't even walk through it. There was, when we were talking before the show, you were said that there was glass and all kinds of things, and you just got out
Mhm.
there and, I mean, cleaning it up is an understatement.
Yeah, so when we bought the house, we knew it had an acre and a half of land, but only about a third of that was accessible. The rest of it was really overgrownly dense with brush, but also broken fence panels and nails and broken glass bottles and just basically not very safe to be in. And it is a big accomplishment these days to buy a house. Takes a lot of money and we didn't have a lot left over. So I wasn't going to hire anybody to fix that. This was one of the first projects that we took on because I could do it myself for free
Mhm.
with a rake and a tap. So it was me,
Yeah.
a rake, a tap, and just weeks and weeks of clearing the land by hand. But now it is the most magical place when you go out there and there's deer that visit and little rabbits and squirrels and chipmunks. And it's like the most wonderful place.
Well, that's one of the things about the way you've archived the transformation, because even if you hadn't, I mean, you hadn't, this is what sometimes happens in social media and even, in just the incomplete online space. There are these accidental success stories, these
Mhm.
accidental influencers, but you're really wanting to inspire people. And you've achieved that. And in the course of that, you've also created this business and this personal brand and a respect for what you've achieved. And so it's the most authentic way to get to where you are. And we'll talk a little bit more about that in the final part of the segment, but it's such a transformation for you personally to take people on. And then the result of that is also, I don't know, it shows up in the work that you do, that you can see the transformation. You can't always see the transformation within someone, but you can see it in your home, and that's representative of the transformation inside yourself. And that's what people are
Mhm.
so attracted to about you and the work that you do and doing it so authentically.
I feel like that's something that I broach upon a lot. I always say that my page is not about having expertise. It's not about perfection. It's about like progress and having belief in yourself, believe that you can do hard things, challenging yourself creatively, or just trying something new. And I think what is hard looks different for us all. And I am never one to act as if I have all the answers. In fact, most of the time, I'm the person who is showing you how I messed up,
Yeah.
hopefully figuring out a way to do it better, but even showing you the side of me that is quite anxious and introverted and telling you that I had a really hard time coming on camera today or I had a really hard time filming this, you feel like there needs to be a certain persona when you come online. And I wanted to show people that there is space for everybody. You don't
Mhm.
have to have a loud voice to be heard. You don't have to be the smartest person. Your work doesn't have to be perfect. There is still space for you, and you're allowed to take that space.
Yeah. And that comes through. It shines through big time. Okay, let's take a quick break and we're going to wrap up in just a second. Stacey, we're just wrapping up with you. And I do want to say, we talked about how you started out with this authentic version of posting and showing the transformations that you're creating. And you're quite successful on Instagram. And what happens when you're quite successful on Instagram is brands come knocking on your door wanting to work with you. And I know that you want to keep the heart of your business the same, but it is fair. And it's a reward of all your hard work to have these brands coming.
Yeah, it wasn't something I intended to happen. I didn't really think that this was a business. It was more of like a documentation of a journey, kind of like a journal, and it ended up being this whole community. But I have been lucky enough for brands to reach out to me, and then brands of those, we align on similar values. We want to empower women or homeowners in general to take ownership of their home and to learn new skills and to be creative. And yeah, I've been lucky enough to turn this into a business and do this full time. And I'm excited to kind of see where it goes.
Yeah. It's really incredible too to know that you went from not being able to work and, as you said, use your body because you're quite ill, to having the recovery that you did, getting your visa right before you buy the house, and you already started to work on your own purpose, not waiting for a card or permission or any other thing to start to kind of
Mhm.
pick yourself up and brush yourself off and start again and find your space in it. Because and really, it was there all along, but you had to work toward that to figure it out.
Yeah, definitely. And I do think it's one of the biggest motivators as well. From my day to day, there was a time when I didn't have a purpose. There was a time when my body wouldn't listen to me. And so now I'm just inspired every day to try and use it to its full capacity and challenge myself and keep pushing myself to do hard things.
When you wake up each day, do you have, we have just like a minute and a half left. Do you have an idea of what you're working on for the day? Like, let's just say you're renovating a certain room, then do you have a list of what you're going to do, or do you just wait for the inspiration? How do you decide now that you have this, like you don't have to go find a job. This is your job that you love so much.
Um, I would love to tell you that I'm this super organized person that has a to-do list of everything, but no, a lot of the time I have this list in the back of my head and I just tackle it as things come. So if the weather is nice, I might get on with the things that I'm doing outside, or I might have a certain room I'm working on inside, but it's also a really old house. And sometimes it decides for me if something springs a leak, I've got to go
Yeah.
on YouTube and figure out how to fix that
Yeah.
first.
Right. So and it's a creative space. Sometimes it's technical, right? Like you're saying, you have to repair things, but it
Mhm.
is artistic. So you do what you feel inspired to do.
Yes, I do.
Right. Well, I thank you for being here. Thanks for coming on the show. I know that you were a little reluctant, but I hope you had a good time. And you do such a good job in the work that you do. And I just wish you all of the success you deserve.
Thank you so much, and thank you for having me and also for encouraging me to come on. I feel like I encourage everyone else to do hard things, so I need to take my own advice, and I wanted to put myself out there, and hopefully people will receive the message.
Yes, you did a great job. Thank you so much, Stacey.